I'm sorry I did that to us, man. Oh.
No, please.
Joe Rogan started his podcast that day with a tone nobody expected. There was no rage, no loud reactions, no table slamming. Instead, it was the quiet heaviness in his voice that set the mood. He looked down for a long moment before speaking, as if collecting himself. When he finally talked to Yachty, the sadness was unmistakable. Joe wasn't angry this time. He was heartbroken. What he had pieced together about Justin Bieber's teenage years, specifically Justin's time under Sean Combs' influence, had him visibly distressed. It was the kind of pain someone feels when they realize a kid was left alone in a storm they never should have been thrown into.
You know, Diddy bought his son a Bentley. Maybe, he could buy you one also while you're
He
out.
got me a Lamborghini.
Oh, well, that's nice.
I haven't gotten it yet, though.
Yeah, I know. When is that coming, that Lamborghini? We talked about this last
He
time.
had the Lamborghini for a day or two, and he had access to the house, and he knows better than to be talking about the things that he does with Big Brother Puff on national television.
Oh, apparently not.
Something.
So check this out, yo. Justin, you ever seen the movie 48 Hours? Right now, he's having 48 hours with Diddy, him and his boy. They're having the times of their lives, like where we hanging out and what we doing. We can't really disclose, but it's definitely a 15-year-old's dream. I have been given custody of him. He signed to Usher.
I'm signed to Usher.
I had legal guardianship of Usher when he did his first album. I did Usher's first album. I don't have legal guardianship of him, but for the next 48 hours, he's with me. So
He began by saying that people forget who Justin Bieber really was when everything started. The world remembers the bright lights, the screaming crowds, the Grammy nights, the magazine covers, but people forget the part that mattered most. Justin was 15, a boy, a kid, still figuring out who he was, still learning what kindness looked like, still growing into his own voice. Joe Rogan spoke softly, noting that the human brain isn't fully developed at that age, especially the part that handles judgment, risk, and emotional control. A teenager should be laughing with friends, Joe said sadly, not being handed over to someone who saw him as a tool.
So many horrific accusations involving young singers, children.
Yeah, it's disgusting.
It's insane.
He makes R. Kelly look like a decent guy.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let him. Actually, someone made reference to the fact that Diddy trying to get at Bieber the way he was trying to get at Bieber was looking a little predatory. And then Usher came in and discovered it and managed him and got custody of him and promised to look after him. And then he sent him to the diddler.
As the episode continued, Joe Rogan revisited an old clip of Sean Combs pulling Justin Bieber close and boasting about having him for 48 hours. Back when it aired, fans treated it like a silly celebrity moment. But now, with everything that has surfaced, the clip felt unsettling. Joe spoke about how strange it looked in hindsight. You're a grown man talking about a teenage boy, as if he were property. Instead of reacting with outrage, Joe just sighed and shook his head. That's not how you talk about a child, he murmured. That's how you talk when you think no one will stop you. The sadness in his tone said everything.
The you of then was on a path of self-destruction. Oh, for sure. Yeah, I would have, for sure, 100%. Yeah. It would have been no bueno. It was bad. I don't know if I'd be alive for sure.
What's up, man? You good?
I'm good. How are you?
All right, young brother, everything's good?
Everything's
Selling
great.
out arenas and everything? Starting to act different, huh? You ain't been calling me and hanging out the way we used to hang out.
Well, I mean, you try to get in contact with me, through all my, partners and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But you never really got my number, so.
Right, okay.
My number?
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you my number.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, according to multiple sources Joe Rogan reviewed, Sean Combs wasn't just a mentor figure. He allegedly had temporary authority over aspects of Justin Bieber's schedule and presence during key points of his early fame. This meant that a powerful industry figure had significant access to a vulnerable kid who had almost no voice of his own yet. Joe's voice softened when he explained this part because the idea of a young teenager being guided by someone with that level of influence, someone later accused of crossing boundaries with multiple people, was heartbreaking. Justin never stood a chance, Joe said gently. He was surrounded by adults but not protected by them. Then came the whispers from insiders. Rogan referenced statements from people who claimed they saw Justin being taken to gatherings at Diddy's homes, gatherings described as secretive, tightly controlled, and filled with people Justin had no business being around at such a young age. Joe didn't describe anything graphic. He wouldn't, and you wouldn't want that for YouTube, but the implication was enough. Justin was exposed to an environment that made him feel uncomfortable. Witnesses said he often sat off to the side, quiet and lost. Joe paused after sharing that detail, staring at the table as if the image of that young kid sitting alone had hit him too hard.
Months ago, I was really struggling mentally and emotionally, and just there was so many things that were adding up, and I wasn't able to enjoy any of the things that I owned.
That stuff's not gonna matter to you.
None of the actual things did anything because I was so hurt and I was so confused and I was so sick, and there was all these things, and I was like, I can't, there's like, you just can't, like you said, you can't enjoy the actual physical, tangible, like, things that money offers, right? Like, it really had to come from within. So that's
It's so crazy.
It is crazy. And meanwhile, the guy was like hanging out with Oprah, hanging out with Obama,
Jay-Z,
everybody.
Joe Rogan talked about how Justin Bieber's behavior shifted not long after those years. The public saw emotional breakdowns, erratic moments, and frantic attempts to reclaim control of his own life. Some people mocked him for it. Some called him spoiled. But Joe expressed sadness over how misunderstood Justin was. That wasn't a spoiled kid, Joe said. That was a hurting kid. He pointed out how Justin's interviews from that time often hinted at sleepless nights and overwhelming fear. Joe remembered an old clip where Justin physically tensed when asked about Sean Combs. At the time, people laughed at his awkwardness. Now, Joe said, that wasn't awkwardness. That was a wound. What made Joe's sadness even heavier was the awareness that the industry hardly did anything to stop it. The people who had the authority to intervene, managers, label executives, mentors, celebrities, stayed silent. Joe didn't call them monsters. He didn't accuse them of malicious intent. He simply pointed out that they let a terrifying situation unfold because Diddy was too powerful to challenge. Joe's voice dropped as he said, those adults should have protected him, but they didn't. They all stepped back and let someone else take the lead, and that someone else was Diddy. The disappointment in his voice was palpable. As Rogan continued, he explained that the pressure Justin felt during those early years wasn't normal, and the toll on his mental health was severe. The constant spotlight, the nonstop noise, the loneliness of fame, all of that was enough difficulty for any 15-year-old. But on top of that, Joe said Justin was trying to navigate confusing relationships with adults who weren't always looking out for him. Joe spoke about the deep sadness of a teenager realizing the people he trusted weren't protecting him the way they should have. Imagine being young, surrounded by so many people, Joe said quietly, but still feeling like you're completely alone. Rogan went on to talk about the emotional burden Justin carried into adulthood. He mentioned Justin's past interviews where he confessed to feeling overwhelmed, scared, and unsure of how to manage his life. Joe didn't dramatize any of it. Instead, he explained how trauma at a young age can follow someone for years. He wasn't acting out for attention, Joe said. He was trying to cope. The grief in Joe's voice grew stronger when he talked about how Justin tried to fill the emptiness with things that didn't help him. Temporary distractions, risky behavior, anything that dulled the anxieties he didn't know how to handle. But even with all the sadness, Joe Rogan made it clear that Justin's resilience is something rare. Despite everything he faced, Justin fought to recover, grew into a more grounded version of himself, and sought healing through faith, counseling, and a healthier lifestyle. Joe's expression softened as he spoke about Justin as a man who is still learning to heal from things that never should have happened. He's trying, Joe said, and that matters. There is something deeply emotional about the way Rogan described Bieber's attempts to heal, almost as if he felt sorrow for how much that young kid had to carry in silence. As Rogan pieced together more of the timeline, he noticed how often Justin Bieber tried to distance himself from Sean Combs later in life. Old videos showed Justin stepping away from certain interactions, avoiding eye contact, or giving uncomfortable laughs. Back then, people chalked it up to celebrity awkwardness. But now, with new information surfacing, those moments looked different, more like a quiet plea for distance. Joe seemed genuinely saddened that nobody picked up on those signs earlier. Rogan then addressed the growing number of insiders and witnesses now speaking up. He noted how people who were once silent were finally ready to share what they saw. Joe didn't sound triumphant about this. He sounded weary, as if burdened by the weight of everything finally coming to light. As the episode neared its end, Rogan's tone turned somber. He looked into the camera with an expression that was a mix of sadness and regret. Diddy built his world on power, he said. But that power came at a cost, and Justin was one of the people who paid for it. He didn't yell or accuse. He simply acknowledged the truth that has begun to reveal itself. Rogan said he hoped that Justin would eventually feel safe enough to share his full story. If he does, Joe said softly, he might help so many other people who went through the same thing. To close the episode, Joe delivered a quiet message to Sean Combs, not with anger, but with a heavy, disappointed tone. You thought the truth wouldn't surface, he said. You thought time would hide it, but you left a trail, and it's being followed. The room fell silent after that. No music, no jokes. Nothing but that one lingering line, we see you. Even though the story is painful, Joe Rogan made it clear that Justin Bieber is not defined by what happened to him. He is defined by how he overcame it. Through faith, love, and hard work, Justin has built a life that finally feels like his own. His journey is proof that even when someone tries to break you at your most vulnerable point, you can still rise. Joe made sure listeners understood that Justin isn't just a survivor. He's a symbol of resilience. And while Diddy's empire continues to crack under the weight of truth, Justin's strength continues to shine brighter than ever. Rogan didn't end the episode with anger. He ended it with sadness, empathy, and hope. Hope that Justin will continue healing, and hope that others will finally see the truth that took far too long to come out.